So we are in the malacha of writing and erasing. We'll be concentrating on erasing on page 287. And as far as writing is concerned, so in writing would also be included all types of business transactions for two reasons. Firstly, it says that one should not conduct themselves on Shabbos as in the weekdays. So doing business is a weekday activity. And then we also have that there are situations that might lead to writing. Usually in business, there's a contract that's done. Same also, we said that, we spoke about this in the last lesson, that when asking a neighbor for a cup of sugar, when you're able to carry, so then it depends what kind of neighbor you have. Some neighbors, when you take a cup of sugar, they write it down. They expect to be returned. You're not giving it as a gift, you expect it to come back to you. So therefore, saying that I want to borrow from, that cannot be done, because then that's a form of business transaction where sometimes a person would write it down. So therefore you could ask for, could I have, could you give me? Now in this category would also go Shabbos earnings. So how is it if somebody is asked to be a babysitter? So if it's doing for free, there's no problem about it. What happens if you're asking to be paid? Same thing would be someone who's a waitress. Can you be a waitress on Shabbos? Can you be a babysitter on Shabbos? Can you do any task for which you're going to be paid on Shabbos? And the answer is?
Paid on Shabbos.
Depends. Okay. Now, to make it exclusively that you're working on Shabbos and being paid on Shabbos for the hours that you're working, that cannot be done. That's called Schal Shabbos, and one cannot take Schal Shabbos cannot do so. What you could do is, if you included in a weekday activity, in other words, you're going to be paid a lump sum. You're also going to be included for that which you worked in the weekdays, and then the Shabbos will be included in that. In other words, what we're trying to do is not to have the exclusive Shabbos payment. So as long as it is included in a weekday payment, then that is permissible. So let's say someone who is an aide to someone who is working all week, and they also work on Shabbos as well. So then you're paid for the week. You don't say I'm being paid for Shabbos. That's fine. Now what happens if someone is only doing it on Shabbos? So as long as you do some activity that is not exclusively Shabbos, then it is permissible. So in other words, let's say you are a babysitter. So then you would do something in the weekday, or you would extend it also until after Shabbos. So you're doing a little work also after Shabbos, and you're being paid not only for Shabbos, but also for the weekday as well. If let's say someone is a tutor, you want to be paid for being a tutor. So if you prepare in the weekday for the lesson that you're going to be giving on Shabbos, so then you're also including your work that you did during the week. The same would also be that what happens, let's say if you are babysitting and you're able to buy something during the week that you're going to bring for the house that you're babysitting in. So you're being paid for the expenditure that you spent during the weekday. So let's say you're going to buy some, you'll buy a box of Pampers and you're babysitting a small child. You bought that. So they're going to pay you for the Pampers that you bought, but since you bought that in the weekdays, then they'll also include the Shabbos hours that you're doing. It'll be, you won't make it exclusively that Shabbos, you're being paid for your expenditures that you paid during the week also. So trying to take something from the week and putting it together with the Shabbos activities, that would be permissible. So let's say a waiter would come beforehand and start setting up on Friday or clean up after Shabbos, that would be fine. Because you're doing something, you're being paid for before Shabbos, after Shabbos, this would be, so you have to also include something that you've done during the week, either being reimbursed for something or actually doing some work or preparing for anything of that sort.
So if you're like, your family asks you to come Friday night or Shabbos day, like in your family, and you come for Shabbos, and you know that you will be paid, and it's more than Shabbos, so like, what should be the attitude?
So do something during the week. Buy something for whoever you're babysitting, buy them something that you'll have an understanding that you're going to be paid back for that as well.
But if they write after Shabbos, ask you to come, and you will have the opportunity.
So then after Shabbos, you'll do something after Shabbos.
Mhm.
So as long as you do something after Shabbos, you can come back after, let's say you babysat until 2:00, then you come back after Shabbos, that's when they're going to pay you. And you'll do something after Shabbos as well in the house, so then you're being paid for that as well. So we're assuming now that the people that they also know the halacha. So if everyone knows the halacha, so it's not going to be awkward because they know what has to be done, you know what has to be done, and they'll sort of be able to put it all together. So if they don't know the halacha, you tell them what the halacha is.
For example, a rabbi works in Shabbos.
Okay, so he prepares his speech in the weekdays. He does different activities in the weekdays that is also being included in the Shabbos salary. So as long as, as I said, if he's being paid by the week, being paid by the month, by the year, then it's a yearly payment. It's not a Shabbos payment. So what happens if someone is a Baal Koreh, someone reads the Torah? So he has to prepare during the week to prepare the Torah reading. So he did some activities preparing for the Torah reading during the week. And then it would be, generally when it comes to a mitzvah, there is a leniency. It says that you are allowed to do so. Let's say someone is a Baal Koreh, but it says that you will not have success with the money that you get. You get paid, but that money will not be a successful money.
Wow.
But in other words, you're told since you're doing a mitzvah, you're allowed to do it. So if someone is not doing a mitzvah, so then goes to another category. You're doing a mitzvah, so you know you can get paid, but you should know that you're not going to have success with this money. So you have to make that decision. Yes.
What did they say if the other person doesn't know the halacha?
Oh, tell them what it is. Tell them the halacha. You'll tell them, yes. Okay. Now on 287. So this was all a part of writing. Now we come to erasing. So erasing would include anything that you're not allowed to write. So then also it would be the same as erasing. So erasing a permanent writing in order to write two letters in its place, that's the Torah prohibition, where you're going to do something. The erasing is also going to be a productive activity because you're going to leave that space to write something else. So the same thing was also in the Mishkan, when they had the boards that they were assembling of the structure of the Mishkan. So they had the letters in order to be, whenever they disassembled it and put it together again, it was going to be set up in the same order that it was originally. So you had Aleph, two letters that were on the boards that were matched one to another. So the letters were that gave you, so in case they had to redo the letter, they would erase it and then rewrite it. So this would be a Torah prohibition, erasing without or any improvement, that would be rabbinic. And also the something that is not lasting, so then that would be rabbinic, you're still not allowed to do it. So you have a board that has a plastic over it. Usually you would have for children, they would have a stylus, you would write on it, make pictures, then you lift it up and it disappears. So that would be rabbinic. The same thing would also be erasing something that we spoke about writing on with dust, writing with when there is steamed up, writing on snow, all of these things, erasing all of this would be forbidden. It is rabbinic, but you're not allowed to do this on Shabbos. On the bottom of 288, erasing would also include tearing letters or between letters on a word. So if one was to tear this box, and you have over here the word elegant, and you're going to be tearing into this word, so now you are erasing this word, this would be forbidden. That's called erasing. Now sometimes we have cakes that have a happy birthday on it or happy anniversary, whatever is written on the cake. So in our community, they usually will put it on a board, like a cardboard or a piece of chocolate. They'll write on it. So then when you're ready to eat the cake, you lift up that whole piece. So there's not an issue with erasing and taking apart the letters. However, if it was written on the cake itself, so now what? What are your options? What are the options? What do we do now? The cake? Cut around it and leave the letters intact. Or you take and you slice underneath the letters, take that piece of cake together with the letters, so you haven't erased it, take and put it on a plate. You'll save that until after Shabbos. Whoever is being honored will have that to take home. And then you cut around the rest of the cake. So our goal is not to erase the letters. Now, what about, you have these cookies. I believe there's kedem that has engraved these like biscuits that have writing on the biscuit itself. It has their brand name. I think it's kedem that has their name on these biscuits. Are you allowed to eat these biscuits on Shabbos? What you're doing is you are breaking the word as you're eating it. So this is, what do you say about that? What do we say about that?
No.
Is it okay?
Okay, so
we're not purposely trying.
Okay, so now we have different opinions about it. The Alter Rebbe does not write exclusively about this, but he does write that when you're making matzahs for Pesach, do not make letters in your matzah to identify which is your matzah. Some people would make their own matzahs, and therefore, when you put them in the oven, you're putting it together with other people's matzahs, and then when you take it out, you want the matzahs that you actually rolled out and you made, you want to have that to take home. So the Alter Rebbe says, do not make letters there. You can make another identifying, you can make a little hole or whatever else it is to show that, you'll know that's your matzah. But do not make letters on it. Why? Because he says then will be a problem when you're going to be eating it on for the Seder. You'll be breaking the letters. So that's where he writes about the letters. So therefore, it seems that Alter Rebbe would say not to eat these biscuits. However, in other, the Mishnah Berurah, he writes the fact that you're putting it in your mouth, you're eating it, so it's not called erasing, it's called eating. So he permits it. So again, those who do eat it, I would not say that they're transgressing, because there is an opinion that says that it is considered eating, not erasing. However, it was suggested that one should be more strict about this.
And why would you eat the biscuit and not the cake?
Because you're putting the whole thing in your mouth. You're not breaking the biscuit and then putting it in, because you broke it before you put it in your mouth. Here, you're putting it.
You could
So
put the whole cake in your mouth.
So let's say if it's on a cupcake, and you put the whole cupcake in your mouth, so that would go into the same. But another thing is, the biscuit, the letters are a part of the cake itself. Over here, it's an additional writing. So there's a difference between an additional writing, where it's considered that you wrote on the cake, or the cake itself is, or the biscuit itself, the letters are a part of the biscuit itself. It's not that you're adding something onto the biscuit, but that is the biscuit. So that would be the.
And sorry, I haven't answered the question, but if it's Anna's birthday and I make a cake for her, that's the letter A, like the whole day.
Oh, the whole thing is, they are, or you have the same thing would be when you have the alphabet cereal.
Oh.
Alphabet cereal. So they, I don't see it in our book. I don't see it. In others, they are lenient about that.
Also, I didn't heard about that pasta.
Okay, let's see.
Also, the cookies. All these cookies.
So also, I guess so reading the whole letter. I'd have to look into that. Okay, now we also have here where sometimes you have stamped on the book. So the library book, usually they would have a stamp, or some people write their names on it. How is this opening and closing on Shabbos?
Wow.
Is it considered writing when you close it? Is it considered erasing when you open it? And the Alter Rebbe is lenient about this. He says there's place to be lenient about this. In other circles, they're very strict about it. The Alter Rebbe says that if one is lenient about it, he has a basis on what to base it on. And so therefore, if they are writing, they're putting identify, one should not put their name on this to identify their book. It's best to avoid the situation. But however, halachically, one is permitted to use this book, Sefer, to open and close. It tells you over here, you have some stickers on the challah. It has the bakery sticker. So removing that sticker on Shabbos is an issue because that would be taking the, what would the issue be? You're not tearing the sticker. What are you doing? When you take off the sticker, what are you doing? Taking the unwanted from the wanted, which is borer. Therefore, this is forbidden. What could you do?
Slice it off.
Slice off with a piece of challah together with the sticker, and then that would be permissible because you're not taking exclusively the sticker off. You're taking it together with a piece of challah. It's still attached to the challah.
The same with an apple. With an apple.
An apple that has the sticker, also the same story. You have to cut off a piece. Cut off a little piece of apple together with the sticker. Tells you I don't know. When you have packages that have letters on them, be careful when you're opening it. Sometimes they have the cookies that have the seal on it together with writing. So you would be permitted to open it, but you'd have to cut between the lines on the open space that it's not written any words, again, just to be concerned about erasing. So these are things that we are aware of. So if able to do it before Shabbos, to open up all the packages, that would be the way to go. So that's our concern. So opening all packages, all cans, all boxes. These are things that someone should be assigned, or if they're doing it themselves, they should before anything that they do wish to use on Shabbos should be opened up before Shabbos. When I asked my rabbinic authority, how should I teach it to the class about opening cans and opening boxes and opening tissues and opening all these things? And he said, tell them, open it before Shabbos. so I'm sharing what I was told. Okay, no question.
I have medicine that comes in packets. So if I don't remember to open it before Shabbos.
Yes, so you would open it.
I open it, but not cutting any letters. But
Yes.
I'm still opening it.
Yes, so you would again for someone who is taking medicines, there is it's more of a so basically there is a leniency when you are someone who needs the medicine, opening it up. The same thing would also be products that are needed for Shabbos. There's a leniency in that. So the same thing would also be with food that's in packaged. So there is a leniency opening it up because it is Shabbos and you do it in a destructive way. So that would be Mekalkel is a rabbinic. The Rabbanan lifted their prohibition when it came to Shabbos needs.
So if it's Shabbos already, and the challah is inside the package, so you need the challah.
Yes.
Maybe you can open it from the other side.
Yes. So it matters how it was closed. Let's say you have different ways. Some of them they have the twisties. So the right way to do it would be just to go around it. It'll be tight, it'll hold, and then there's no issue in opening it up on Shabbos. Sometimes they twist it. So then untwisting is a malacha. So then what you would do is, if possible, matters how tightly it was twisted, sometimes you just take the package and you pull, and as you're pulling it, it keeps going higher and higher and higher. You keep going higher and higher and higher until it falls off. So the twisting remained twisted, and you opened up your package. Then you have sometimes that they seal it with a tape. In that case, what you would do is you would break the plastic bag, you would break it in a way that it's no longer going to be usable. You're not going to store your challah in this bag after, if you're not eating the whole challah, some people will store the challah in plastic bags. In this case, since this bag now is going to be opened by tearing it, you would be done in a destructive way that you're going to break it completely in such a way that you're not going to use it as a storage bag, you're going to throw the bag out.
Okay.
So then that would be permissible. Same would be other Shabbos items that you need. Also, open it in a destructive way. It should not be used as a storage. Empty out the contents in something else, and you could open it. Well, let's say opening a package. So ungluing something is worse than breaking it, because ungluing that is a malacha. Two things that are attached together is called sewn together. It has the same status as being sewn together. And then tearing something that is sewn together, that would be forbidden. If you're tearing it in order to improve it, it's a Torah prohibition. If you're tearing it just to tear it, that would be rabbinic. In this case, we try to avoid ungluing something by rather breaking the package elsewhere, let's say making a cut here, and then taking out the contents of this tissue box. That would be the way to go instead of undoing the flap, which is glued together. Okay, the next malacha is building. Any questions on this? Okay. A building is on page 293. So this is the Mishkan was actually taken boards and assembled, and you made actually a building. You also, on the Mishkan, you also made a roof to the building, the different curtains, the different coverings. So you had 4 coverings that were on top of the Mishkan. This was, you made a structure, and you made a covering, you made a roof to this structure. So building a permanent building, adding to a permanent building, preparing the ground for residence, all of this is a Torah prohibition. The Toldos are making a permanent tent, attaching something, doors or windows onto their hinges. So anything that's being attached to a permanent building would be a part of this malacha. Page 294, making a hole in the wall in order to use it for something, making a hole in the wall to put in a hook. So now the hook is a permanent part of this building. That is a Torah prohibition. Making the hole to put the hook into the wall, that would be a part of this malacha. Making a utensil, assembling it, making cheese from gelled milk, you're making it into a solid block. Rabbinic would be building a temporary building, a tent, braiding hair, similar to building and demolishing, sweeping a dirt floor to fill in, one might fill in the holes, straighten out the floor, that would be forbidden. Playing with nuts and marbles on the floor, on the ground. So we're concerned that one might straighten the ground in order that the playing field should be straight. So any games that are done on the floor itself, for instance, we have golf, soccer, all of the rolling games on the earth floor, that is rabbinic prohibition. And they also extended that to the house itself, that on carpet it's fine, and on the table is fine. So those games that are on the carpet or table, so that is rolled on the ground, that would be permissible. Attaching, page 294 on the bottom of the page, you have attaching something to the wall, attaching a hook with glue, or you also have air pressure. You have hooks that it has a rubber suction cup at the back of it. Yes? Anyone familiar with that? And then you pull the lever down, you pull the hook down, and it creates a suction, and now the hook is attached to the wall. Anyone familiar with that type of hook?
It never worked.
It falls down. Okay, some people will use it in the kitchen or to hang their towel on it. So if it's a good suction cup, it will hold. And doing that on Shabbos is forbidden because you are attaching something to the wall. Adding something to the structure is the Torah prohibition. So now on page 295, reattaching a door or a window that became detached. A doorknob came off. So can you put it back? The door is a permanent part of the building. Can you put the doorknob back? Can you reattach your doorknob? So then you can't attach it, even if it's going to be loosely, because you might attach it firmly. Now the same would also be making the utensil, that you have two parts and attaching one to the other. What would be an example that would be considered making a utensil? A broom that you have a broom that you so you have the brooms that are one permanent piece. Then you have the brooms that you screw on the top to the bottom. Doing that on Shabbos is making a utensil. Without it, you're not going to be able to sweep. Putting it together, now you've made a broom. Doing that on Shabbos is forbidden. So if it comes apart, you're not allowed to put it together on Shabbos. However, yes?
The one before we attach the door now. What if you just let the cat how to leave and the door, like you turn over there and the doorknob falls and then
Yes.
you're locked in.
Oh, so you're stuck.
You can't
So,
do anything.
okay, so now let's see what happened here. We have two parts of the handle. One part would be that is actually the one that turns that opens and closes. The other one is just to hold on to, and it's attached to that piece. So if the piece that is the one that's actually opening and closing, the other side falls off, it still is usable. You could use it as well. What happens if the side that does not have that pin in the middle? What happens if that comes off? If someone else is in the house, you ask them to open the door for you. If it is a child and you have to get the child out, the child might become frightened, and we're very concerned about the trauma that a child might go through. You do anything that is needed to open that door. Even if it means breaking down the door, taking off the hinges, whatever it is, if a child is locked in, we're speaking about a child who is going to have trauma because of this. The child becomes frightened. So halachically, do everything to have that child safe. So that is something that we take into consideration. Now we have making a utensil would be forbidden.
What about an adult?
An adult, again, if it matters, again, you have someone who is becoming traumatized and they're like, I know. So then you do what you would do the same thing. We don't want a person who's going to sort of be
Trapped.
trapped, that they feel that they're trapped and they start screaming and shouting and, like becoming hysterical. We don't, in such a situation, we take care of whatever has to be done to take care of that person. Now, so we have taking sections of furniture, bed, table, attaching it together, that cannot be done. However, if it's meant to be used that way, then it's not considered that you are assembling. So let's take a table. Many tables have a part that you could extend the table and add another piece to the table. Could that be done on Shabbos? And the answer is yes. It's meant to be taken in, taken out. It's not considered that you're assembling the table. You're extending the table. That would be permissible. The same would be also when you have a folding chair. When you open the chair, you're making a chair. When the chair is closed, you can't sit on it. Are you allowed to open the folding chair? And the answer is yes. It is already assembled. You are just extending as it is. The same thing is also going to be with a folding bed. Same thing is also going to be with, you have the playpen, where all the parts are there. You just have to open it and extend it. All of these are permissible. However, when it comes to, let's say there is a bed, a child's bed, a crib, usually has the ability to make it higher or lower as the child needs. So when it's a newborn, they make it very high up. As the child gets bigger, you put the mattress all the way down. Doing that on Shabbos is considered doing something new. It's not meant to be taken up and down as a folding chair or a folding bed or folding or the playpen. The same would also be when you have something that's meant to open and close. You also have, speaking about a baby, you have by the stairs, you have a gate that opens and closes. Are you allowed to extend the gate and lock it, open it? That again is permissible because it's meant to open and close. That would be permissible. Now, making a tent, even a temporary tent, so that making a permanent, making a tent would be a Torah prohibition. Making a permanent tent is a Torah prohibition. A rabbinic tent, the temporary is a rabbinic prohibition. So you cannot make a tent, and that would also include the roof as well. So now we know that on Sukkot, there are people who do make a tarp or an awning or a covering to their sukkah. In case it rains, they open it up. After the rain, they close it, and your sukkah is dry. What do we do on Shabbos and Yom Tov? As far as, so let's say it starts to rain on Shabbos, and you want to cover your sukkah, or it rained on Friday, it was covered up, and now you want to open it on Shabbos, Yom Tov. What would be permissible, what is not permissible, because making a temporary tent would also include a temporary roof, would also be included in this. So what do we do? What are the rules?
I remember that we always had like a red sukkah and we like ate on a red table, so I don't know. Is it that everything is forbidden?
Okay, now, the halacha is that if there is a temporary tent before Shabbos and Yom Tov, a temporary roof, and you're just extending it, you're permitted to do so. Also, when you're closing it, when you're taking it off, as long as you do not remove that whole covering. What is considered already covering? So as long as it is a hand breadth, that's considered a covering. So if there is a hand breadth that is there before Shabbos, that is extended, then you just open it more, all the way. When you roll it back, you have to leave that hand breadth still intact. So as long as that hand breadth is there, it's just considered an extension instead of making a roof covering. So an extension is permissible. The same thing can also be when you're making extensions. For instance, you have folding doors, pull in, pull out. So as long as it's an extension, it's partially open, partially closed, you pull it out, you pull it in, that would be an extension. Same would also be with stroller that has a canopy to it. It should be partially opened before Shabbos and Yom Tov. Then you can extend it. When you close it, that don't close it all the way. There's still going to be a hand breadth that is still intact, that is not going to be closed completely. You're not going to take off the canopy. You're going to leave the canopy and leave a hand breadth in either way. On page 296, what happens if screw came out of your eyeglasses. So we have the temples that are attached with the screw. And what happens if your eye lens falls out of the glasses? What do we do with that on Shabbos? So let's look on 296. Putting back the screw is forbidden. You are making a vessel, which is your glasses. It's also forbidden to restore a lens which fell out. If, however, they usually fall out. If you have, so my eyeglasses are such, so you have the ones that have a complete frame around it. That's it. So these eyeglasses, what holds the glass from falling out? You don't see any. There's no frame on the bottom. So how's the lens staying in? Anyone know?
Hope, gravity.
Anyone?
There's like a clear thing.
Okay.
outside.
Over here there is a plastic screen that's holding the glasses in. So if it becomes loose, then the glass will fall out very often, and you'll be constantly putting back. What you do is you pull the string tight, and then it will stay there. But if it is such that it's loose and your glasses always fall out, then it's meant to be put back and taken out. It's not meant to be there on a permanent basis. But usually you don't want to wear glasses that you'll be constantly trying to find the lens when it fell out. So you would fix it properly, and that would be meant to be on a permanent basis, and therefore that's the way to go. When it comes to closing a jar, is there the same thing also with our closing a lid, closing a bottle? Are you making a utensil there? It's meant to open and close. That's the way it's meant to do it. The same thing as opening and closing a door. It's meant to open and close. There's no issue in building when you close the door. You have those who, when it comes to baby stroller or carriage, if a wheel falls off, you can't put it back, you're building. So if it's meant to begin with, where it has these screws that you pull out and you're able to put in pieces. Let's say you have a stroller that you're also able to add a baby seat to it, and it's meant to open and close. So that's the way it's meant, just like you're opening a door and closing a door. It has hinges, and that's the way it's meant to be used. Same thing is here. Over here, if the wheels fall off, it was meant to be there permanently. Putting back the wheel would be fixing it. If it's made by hinges, screws that you're allowed to take it off. You also have those who have a stender, a book holder. Anyone have that? You have it. You make adjustments to how you want your book stand to be. So it's meant to be adjusted. It's not meant to be there permanently. So it has a screw. You loosen it. You pull it up to the height that you want. You're allowed to do that on Shabbos because that's the way its function is. That it's not there closed on a permanent basis. It's meant to be used just at the height as you're going. Yes?
But you're able to open and close outside of your house, like.
That's correct. You are. It's meant to be open and closed. It's not a permanent part of the structure that's meant to be closed. So you're allowed to open your door and close your door. You're allowed to open your window and close your window. Putting in a screen is a problem. Putting in a window is a problem. Putting in a door is a problem. But if it's there already, it's meant to be used that way. There's no issue opening and closing on Shabbos.
All right. Last question is not connected to today's topic.
Okay, so let's close our.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if you want to take attendance, please.